But here I am, and you will all have your own reasons for coming out tonight. Hopefully the topic title, Forgiveness, Why Bother, resonated in some place, not just intellectual, but personal. If I don't meet your expectations, please forgive me. But here we go. I don't know if I did a good thing or not, but with Father Jim, my confrere, we came out to this glorious parking lot early this afternoon, and we went to watch American Sniper. Great movie. And I think really set me up for the presentation as I had intended to start. When you talk about forgiveness, of course, it's a very personal thing. The forgiveness we need to seek, and the forgiveness we need to offer. But it might be kind of off-putting to ask the question at a personal level in a pizza place. So each of us can experience this evening very, very intimately, personally, as we listen and share. But I'm going to choose to comment or to put before us some very public, dramatic, big picture situations where forgiveness is either of the essence or it's ignored. Why bother? And so the first image that I want to put before us is this memorial that I saw in Stony Point, New York on the 10th anniversary of 9/11. Fits well after watching American Sniper. And I was taken by a handwritten reflection that has since disappeared. Where did it go? There we are. A handwritten reflection commenting on 9/11, and it said this: "The people memorialized here, the names before you, and at other sites were killed simply because they were Americans. They were murdered by a cancer called radical Islam. We cannot forgive. We must never forget what was done to our friends, brothers, sisters, co-workers, all Americans." And it goes on. We can never forgive. That is one stance before a very egregious violation of justice. And then, if we go to downtown Toronto, or the Lakeshore at least, you go to Park Lawn. You will see a memorial there. Do you know what it commemorates? The Air India bombing that, about 20 years ago now, that took a Canadian jet out of the airs off the coast of Scotland, mostly Indian people on board. Very different type of message associated with this memorial. Inscribed on the marble is, "Forgiveness is the road between the memory of the offense and the restored relationship." Forgiveness is the road between the memory of the offense and the restored relationship. Do we have to forget if we're going to forgive? What do we do about memory? If I forgive once, am I done? Well, if it's done once and for all, how is it a road? Will I always necessarily restore the relationship if I forgive or if I'm forgiven? Reconciliation. Maybe, maybe not. This is more of the approach I want to take. I think as Christians we need to take, rather than say we can never forgive. And I invite you to think about whatever situation in your life has been most egregious. In my life as a priest, I have accompanied people who were sex abused by their high school teachers and by their uncles. I've dealt with people who were addicted to drugs and had to forgive themselves. In my own life, I have my own demons and you have yours. So I just call you to touch whatever situation of forgiveness challenges you the most as we reflect together on the question before us, why bother? I want to put this in the context of a loving plan, which is God's. to the time before sin and division and brokenness and the need for forgiveness existed. In reality, that is yours and mine, human beings doing our best, in relationships, some healthy, some less so, touched by sin, other people's, and our own, the context where forgiveness becomes necessary. St. John Paul II in 2002 wrote a wonderful apostolic letter. I encourage you to read it, to download it, to find it. It's not hard. Misericordia Dei, the mercy of God. What is it we're doing when we forgive? Why is it important? I believe we should bother. I think it's of the essence if we're going to take our Christian identity seriously. What did he say? It is the face of Christ that must be rediscovered through the sacrament of penance, which for the faithful is the ordinary way of obtaining forgiveness and the remission of serious sins committed after baptism. I'm assuming most of us here tonight are Catholic. We will have our own response to the call to sacramental confession. I want to put that out there as where we go to be freed from sin and to be restored. But I want to have a reflection on a lot of the human dynamic that is part of forgiveness, which we bring to the sacramental reality. Not make this about the sacrament right away or ultimately, but to see how the question why bother is good that we answer affirmatively, not just because the sacrament asks it of us, but because there's a whole layer of humanity, mine and yours, that benefits when forgiveness enters our landscape. And so, a few things. What is forgiveness? Well, it's the heart of the Christian message. Why did Jesus come at all? To achieve the forgiveness that kept us from being at our best as humans and in a healthy relationship with God. The supreme instance of forgiveness is the redemption. So like it or not, the paradigm we need to look up to is Jesus. Jesus came among us to show us how to be human. That is the kicker of Christianity. There's no easy way out. He is the measure of successful humanity. And all that he did on the cross is what we need to arrive at as we can, as we struggle with sin and forgiveness. Reconciliation is the sum total of Christ's mission, restored relationship, to be reconciled. Christ passed to the church the mission to forgive sins in his name, and what we're doing here tonight is an expression of that entrustment of the Lord to the church of the remission of sins in his name. What is forgiveness? I want to ask you that question. What do you think forgiveness is?
Pain.
Pain? All right.
To some.
To some. Michelina, what's forgiveness? It's not easy to put words on it, is it?
Giving mercy to those that doesn't deserve it.
Giving mercy to those who do not deserve it. Okay, that's a good one to go with. How about this? Forgiveness is a willingness to abandon one's right to resentment, negative judgment, and indifferent behavior. Doesn't sound very churchy. It's very human. A willingness to abandon one's right to resentment, negative judgment, and indifferent behavior. It includes fostering undeserved compassion, generosity, and perhaps love towards the one who hurt us. It's interpersonal. It's always between two people. It's always about relationship. And it's always intrapsychic. It's about me and myself, my inner world. Forgiveness takes place over time and involves choice. It's not automatic. I have to want to do it. We saw in the first image the memorial for the Air India crash. It's a road between the memory and restored relationship. That's a process. As a priest, I often encounter people, and they come, and they're bitter, and they're angry. Oh yeah, I forgave them. Really? Really? We want to believe we've done it because it's painful. But I brought something, I don't know where it ended up. Let's see. Here we go. Something to help us remember about forgiveness. Any of you cook? I have an onion. When is an onion peeled? When you cut off the scorchy little brown peely piece on the outside? Or maybe go a layer deeper and take off some more? And maybe cut off that first layer of kind of whitish, brownish onion? When are you done peeling an onion? Where's the sweetest part of an onion? It's at the center. It's like forgiveness. There are the easy outer layers that we kind of work through, but we're not finished with forgiveness until we're ready to cut to the next level and go to the next level until we get to the heart of it, which is always a painful process. But more than the pain, I want to focus on the process piece. There are layers of forgiveness that we can't even realize we need to get to, because often between us and forgiveness is anger, and none of us wants to admit we're angry. Everybody can see it, but God forbid I admit it. Okay? Because nice Christians don't get angry. That's nonsense. Christians get angry. Jesus did as much. And if someone perpetrates an injustice against you, it's normal, it's healthy to get angry. And you have to work through the anger before you can come to forgiveness. And so, a little bit of that takes place over time. It involves choice. It's not automatic that your onion gets peeled. You have to decide to do it. And so too with forgiveness. Hello? All right. Forgiveness is not forgetting, pardoning, condoning, excusing, or denying the offense. It's not pretending you didn't hurt me or pretending I did nothing wrong. Forgiveness has to acknowledge the injustice, the immorality, the wrong that was done. Forgiveness is not giving permission to the offender to hurt us again. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean I'll let you abuse me again or betray my trust again. When you forgive does not mean you become stupid. When you forgive, you look at the facts for what they are. And you need to move forward based on the facts. To forgive or not to forgive, that is the question. Okay. What about Jesus? Does Jesus put conditions on forgiveness? Well, no. From God's side, forgiveness is a free gift. We cannot earn forgiveness. But we can only receive the gift of forgiveness, and we can only derive the benefits that the Lord wants to give us if we do certain things. If I offer you a present, and it contains everything you always wanted, including the key to your Ferrari and your 10-bedroom mansion in Woodbridge, mortgage paid, and you do not accept the gift, or you take the gift and you don't open it, can you benefit from the gift? No. Forgiveness is like that. The Lord is forever gifting us freely His forgiveness, but we can only receive the gift and benefit from it if we are contrite. If we recognize the wrong we've done and are sorry for it. If we repent of the harm that we've done, turn our life around and away from the sin that has wounded relationship within my own soul, within other people as relationships, and with God Himself. And if I make reparation, if I make up for the harm that I've done. That sounds a lot like confession. Oh my God, I'm heartily sorry for having offended thee, and I detest all my sins, that contrition. And then, do your penance as a sign on the outside of the inner decision, the choice to move away from what broke relationship, that I might be restored in them. And then reparation, make up for the harm I've done. That's very human before it's a Christian or Catholic or sacramental precept. And I remember once my mom was babysitting a kid, and his mother was very rude, and she would just show up late and never pay extra for it or even apologize for the delay. And one day she came with a bouquet of flowers, and my mom thought, oh, finally, a gesture of appreciation. Flowers smelled like rot. They had obviously been sitting on her desk at work for the week or something, and they smelled like death. That's not really a sign of contrition or repentance. To forgive does not mean you're stupid. You know, the wife that receives a gift from her husband, and she can see right away he's feeling guilty, is not going to appreciate the diamond ring or the roses or whatever it is you brought. See, it's not just doing nice things that means we've been contrite, repentant, or making reparation. So Jesus doesn't put conditions on his giving of forgiveness. He died on the cross knowing a lot of people wouldn't accept it. He did it anyway. None of us can earn, but I just put this list of passages up that show us how many times Jesus puts in the scriptures the need on our part to choose to receive the gift by being contrite, penitent, and wanting to do right. Okay, and you can peruse those. All of the elements that become part of the sacrament are in his teachings. Because we can't pretend to receive the gift and continue in a way that hurts people rather than brings relationships back into harmony. Forgiveness and psychology. I love the story that Father Kelly tells. Maybe some of you know him from our parish. He was in New York. He's from New York. And at one point, a Jewish psychologist sent to him a woman who had been in therapy with the psychologist for 20 years. And the doctor says, Father Kelly, this woman's a Catholic. I've worked with her. We've come to a wall. She hasn't progressed in 5 years. Can you talk to her? Sure. The lady comes over. What does Father Kelly do? He talks, as he's so good at, and listens, as he's so good at. And the lady decides to go to confession. Good first confession in 20 years. A week later, the doctor calls Father Kelly back. Father, what did you do with that woman? So many things came unplugged and unblocked, and we've been able to move forward in ways we hadn't done in years. What did you do? What school of psychology did you use? And Frank says, oh, a little something I learned from one of your Jewish boys. Went to confession. Psychology at the human level proves that forgiveness is healthy for us because we're human, even if we're not Christian. Forgiveness is effective in resolving feelings of anger, anxiety, and fear. Forgiveness can be helpful as a counseling tool with a wide range of populations, including incest survivors, substance abusers, and cancer patients. You can't forgive and forget. You know, Don Quixote, in the classic Spanish story, tells his sidekick Sanchez, oh, forgive and forget. It's very romantic, but it's nonsense. To forgive does not give you a lobotomy. You cannot forget, you need not forget if you forgive. There's some wonderful documentation of a Franciscan brother who, in the Lebanon crisis some years back, had been taken hostage by Shia extremists. And he tells the story of being called after his release to speak about his adventure of torture and abuse and all of that, a lot of which we're hearing cases of, even more extreme now with the whole ISIS crisis. And he says, I'm talking at this cocktail event after the dinner, and people are crying. And he says, they're not crying because of my experience. They're crying because as I remember my trauma and abuse and injustice, it's allowing them to touch their own. Every time I remember the injustices done to me, I heal. Every time I remember them, I heal. And I need to forgive those who acted so egregiously against me. Bring out the onion again and go to the next level of decision to heal. We have to allow the memories to come forth, to look at them and to heal. They don't go away. Just because you go for a week in the Dominican Republic and drink yourself silly won't make the harm go away. To be able to say, God, heal that for me, or allow me not to get caught up in it, rather than wallowing in self-pity, or regret, or resentment. What is the alternative to forgiveness? Resentment. And what is resentment but anger that is resent? And it gets stuck in this closed circuit, resentment. It's like you're taking poison and you're waiting for the other person to die. Resentment is like you taking poison and expecting the other person to die. Those are the words of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. All that he endured in South Africa under the apartheid regime. And he was able to say, without forgiveness there is no healing. There's no point getting hung up on resentment. It only kills you. When I recall, I heal. The advantages of forgiveness. Well, for the person forgiven and for the forgiver, there are many advantages. Let me try to catch up with myself here. For the forgiver, when you can renounce the hostility towards the person who offended you, that's good for you. When you are freed from the burden of debt or punishment if you are the perpetrator, that's good. When the enemy may be restored to friendship, the guilty brought to repentance, or the prisoner to freedom, that's good for the person forgiven. What about for the vigor? Why should I bother forgiving you? Because it's good for me. I forgive, and we're called to forgive, not primarily for the sake of the aggressor. We are called to forgive because it's good for us. Unless we forgive, what happens? We identify with the injustice that was done to us. We become the abused. We become the jilted lover. We become all that is negative. We might become proud, self-righteous, holier than thou, because we feel morally superior to the person who has hurt us. What's more, we may enjoy looking good at their expense. We're the good guy or the good girl, and they're the bad guy or bad girl. Enjoying looking good at their expense. To make sure that others know this, what happens? We fall into gossip, we slander the one who has harmed us. When we forgive, we shed the identity of the victim. It's very freeing, very healthy. To forgive is the best form of self-interest. Besides being altruistic, it's also the best form of self-interest. Because in forgiving, I am also releasing myself from the bonds that held me captive, and it's important that I do all that I can to restore relationship. Because without a relationship, I am nothing. I will shrivel. Those two are words from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, lifted from the No Forgiveness, No Future series that he gave. When I forgive, my faith life develops. And that's also an advantage. Now, what if the person I forgive doesn't want to be forgiven? Who cares? That's their problem. You forgive them anyway. I want to give a story here about a woman I am very good friends with from Montreal. This is all public knowledge now. It's no longer a big secret, so I'm free to speak about it. She first came to me when I was a priest there. I mean, 8 years. This goes back about 14 years. And she sat before me in a chair in my office for 2 hours, shivering and crying, before she could begin to utter the words that when she was 14 years old and 13 years old at high school, the math teacher sexually abused her. That began a 4 or 5 year stretch of therapy. She finally had the courage to call him and say, I know what you did, and I denounce it. And I will stop being your victim. I will take back my dignity. To the point where just a few months ago, Ironically, the man's name was Santa Guida, Holy Guide, ironically enough, was arrested in Montreal. A high school teacher from Lester Pearson High School. And this woman is at the point now where she's telling her friends, the person who got this gold is me. I used to be ashamed to tell people. I was afraid to tell people. Now I want them to know it's me, because if there are other victims out there, I want them to know that the pain is not the last word, and freedom comes. She forgave the man who abused her. Are they reconciled? No, they don't need to be. They don't have to be friends. He can accept or not accept her forgiveness, but her extending it has freed her to continue with the healing and to redefine herself, not as the kid who was abused, but as the woman who rediscovered her own beauty, even in giving forgiveness to a man who did a despicable thing. She can now speak with him, or of him, with compassion. She has pathos for him. He's a pathetic man, and her heart goes out to him. And so, reconciliation may or may not come. For the man forgiven, her forgiveness has helped him to admit what he did. He didn't contest it, he admitted it. And so, the good that comes out of tough situations. And so, can you forgive someone who doesn't want to be forgiven, or who doesn't ask for forgiveness? Of course. Of course. Your boyfriend was a jerk, and cheated on you, and he lied to your face for 3 years. Forgive him anyway, cut him loose. Your girlfriend was sleeping with your cousin until your wedding day, as I also know happened in a couple that I was working with. And when the truth surfaced, he cut her loose. Until he forgave her, he was sick. All of his hair turned white, and it started to fall out of his head. When he finally came to forgiveness, he didn't want to see her again, but he chose to stop harboring the negativity towards her, to his great advantage. And so, here we are. If forgiveness depended on whether the perpetrator asked for it or not, it would mean that the victim was forever a victim, ever dependent on the whim of the perpetrator. But when you say, I forgive you, you are the one who extends forgiveness. But it's up to the other to appropriate the forgiveness by being contrite. I am mindful of time. I'm going to stop there, I think. 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to stop anyway. There's always time for questions. I want to conclude with a little meditation from Henry Nouwen. It goes like this, on forgiveness. This morning I meditated on God's eagerness to forgive me, revealed in the words of Psalm 103. As far as the east is from the west, so far does God remove sin. In the midst of all my distractions, I was touched by God's desire to forgive me again and again. If I return to God with a repentant heart after I have sinned, God is always there to embrace me and let me start fresh. The Lord is compassion and love, slow to anger, rich in mercy. Really? How many of us have reflected on the image of God that is operative in our hearts, in our minds, when we need to ask for forgiveness? Very important question. If he is the cosmic taskmaster with the policeman's, baton to whip us when we act out of line, who's going to ask for forgiveness? What is your image of God that is operative when you think about forgiveness? What is your own self-image? Are you a person defined by your sin and brokenness? Or are you a beloved son and daughter or daughter of God who sometimes acts inappropriately? Are you the kid who was sex abused? Or are you the man or woman who has dignity and suffered an egregious offense? What self-image is operative? Because all of that will influence our ability to receive forgiveness first, as the paradigm from which we're then able to offer it to others. We conclude with the last few lines from Henry Nouwen. Maybe the reason it seems hard for me to forgive others is that I do not fully believe that I am a forgiven person. If I could fully accept the truth that I am forgiven and do not have to live in guilt or shame, I would really be free. My freedom would allow me to forgive others 70 times, 7 times. By not forgiving, I chain myself to a desire to get even, thereby losing my freedom. A forgiven person forgives. This is why we proclaim what we pray, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us.